Hey everybody, welcome to QuibimBlog.com. So today we have Irene Mayorga on. Irene is from Quibim. She's the clinical trial manager, pretty much like a project manager for the clinical trials that Quibim is the vendor on for imaging services, right? So welcome, Irene.
Welcome, and thank you very much, Dan, for your nice presentation. And yes, as you said, I am the manager or the clinical trial coordinator here in Quivim. And as you said, also, we are the imaging vendor of the different CROs or pharma companies.
Mm-hmm.
So we are in charge of all the imaging part of the clinical trials.
Mm-hmm. And so just so people get a better understanding, who is your typical customer? Who approaches you and what do they need?
Usually in the field of clinical trials, the typical customer is the CRO or the pharma company that needs an imaging vendor, a person that knows and have the knowledge about medical imaging from the very beginning in the acquisition manuals or imaging acquisition manuals or protocols design, that it's a tough part of the clinical trials, till the quality check assurance of the images and the post-processing of the images.
I see.
Sometimes those companies, such as the CRO or the pharma companies, do not have a department on post-processing or image post-processing. So we cover that part of the
Mm-hmm.
clinical trial.
And you guys are in Spain, but your clients come from all over the world, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
so you're not doing the images. Like, let's say someone needs an MRI. Your Quibim is not actually doing the MRI. You're taking the image, right? How does that work?
Yeah, we are not acquiring the images. We are a platform that can be accessed via web and that the user do not need to download anything. It is accessible through Google Chrome or through any browser. So the user, in this case, the center, only has to upload the image through our platform and the image arrives to our servers. So
Interesting.
there we start to analyze to assure the quality of the images and we start all the process that we have to do in the clinical trial.
And then
Okay,
who do you send that? Because I work at a research sites. I also work at I own a small CRO. But at the sites where we're doing studies, we're doing a lot of Alzheimer's studies, and it requires MRI with contrast. And so the
Mhm.
sponsor told us, hey, you need to find a vendor. And so it makes it very difficult because we're not in the business of looking for vendors. We're in the business of enrolling patients and following a protocol. I mean, we don't know where to look for a vendor, so we just go with the first vendor we find that wants to work with us. And, then we have to negotiate with them, hey, send us the results. But this seems like a much more streamlined approach to doing that, right?
Yeah, yeah, we always receive the images, assure the quality check or do the quality check of the images. We always have a time lapse that is usually 48 to 72 hours. So in 72 hours, we set to the centers, okay, you have to repeat the MR because the patient moves, or no, I cannot accept this image because of whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason, because of an artifact, or this image is perfect to be analyzed and to be included in the clinical trial. That's the
Yeah.
first step. The second one is that we start with the analysis of the images, the post-processing of the images, and when we finish that analysis, we upload it to the platform again. So at the point we finish the post-processing of the images, you have the results of the post-processing of this image.
So you
Even
you you will have results sent out to the
yes,
sites. Okay.
yes, of course. Also weekly, we send to the pharma and to the centers a bit of a follow-up of the
Mhm.
clinical trials. How many centers are involved, how many images are being sent, and how many images are being processed. So
Interesting.
this way, the clinical the pharma or the CRO know everything about the clinical trial,
Yeah, there's
knows what's
full transparency with
yeah.
what's going on with the study. So, okay, my question would be, why use another vendor? So let's say, for example, in my study, I found a vendor that does the MRI, okay?
Mhm.
Why now they're gonna send me the results, but why use Kibim? Like why not just use that result that they send me?
Okay, because we do not gives only the results that the different scanners or the different machines provide. We also have an advanced post-processing of the images. So we provide the imaging biomarkers, we quantify the images. This way, we believed and we know that that we have got a real-time clinical trial. So
Mm,
you can know how the clinical trial and how the drug that you, for example, are evaluating is responding or not in
mm-hmm.
in a patient or in a population. So we believe that with this approach of the clinical of the with the biomarkers, we short the times to know the response of the new drug.
I see. So it's basically real big data. I see behind you a lot of algorithms running. Like I assume you guys are using machine learning to look at these
Yes.
things, algorithms. Can you just kind of walk me through that? And I think this is increasingly important in the era of risk-based monitoring that we're in, right?
Sorry, can you repeat? I cannot hear you properly.
Yeah, as far as all those algorithms, like, the ones running behind you, I would assume that you're using the machine learning's artificial intelligence to sort
Yeah.
of parse through all this data and give the sponsor a real-time analysis of what's going on. And so how important is this, do you think, in the era of big data and risk-based monitoring? I mean, how safety, this is a huge safety innovation for clinical research as well, right?
Yeah, we believe that these new techniques of artificial intelligence are very, very important because we can extract information before nowadays. Nowadays, we have to wait until time lapsed in order to see the time response of the drug or not. We believe that with those biomarkers and with a proper analysis, these times can be reduced. Due to that, the pharma can say, okay,
Mm,
I'll stop it now, the clinical trial, because I'm not reaching the results that are desired, or this drug is not better than the one that is in the market, so it do not have sense to continue, or I have to change something, or everything is going perfect, so I will follow with the
right.
clinical trial. So that's why we incorporate that biomarkers
Interesting.
in the imaging part of the clinical trials.
Now let's
We
talk
also have
about the
the
biomarker part. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we'll get back
no.
to that. Biomarker, to me, it's like the hot topic. I interviewed someone the other day. He discussed, the future of clinical research is all in the biomarkers and the diagnostics. So, what does Kibim do in regards to biomarkers? Like, how is this more than just the imaging vendor? How is it like a biomarker analyzer, pretty much, right?
Okay, we are specialists in extracting those biomarkers, and we extract it in 5 different fields mainly. One of them is brain, and we are focused mainly on brain volumetry for Alzheimer and also for dementia. Also, we've got several biomarkers in oncology. So we analyze the diffusion and the perfusion of the different tissues. So this way you can know the aggressiveness or not of the tumor. Due to that, thanks to that, you can know if these characteristics are being altered with the new drug that you are evaluating or not. That's what I told about the reduction of time to response.
Mm,
Also, we are focused on lung, and we mainly have biomarkers on COPD, that is emphysema, The main advantage that we've got in this field is that nowadays emphysema, for example, is diagnosed in severe, moderate, or mild emphysema, and now we are providing percentage of emphysema, which means how many of emphysema you've got in your lungs. Not only if you have a severe or a mild emphysema. We also provide the percentage, the quantity. Also, we've got bone biomarkers, and we analyze osteoporotic bone. So we analyze the microarchitecture of the bone, and we can predict if the bone is going to fracture or not. So that's a good point. And well, the last one, it's liver and abdomen, but we are more focused on liver, on the hepatostatosis disease. So we call it like a virtual biopsy. So instead of do the biopsy of the patient each 6 months or each year with an MR, we can predict how is this liver evoluting or not.
And this is all from analyzing the images. You don't do anything with blood, nothing, just
No.
strictly images.
No. Yeah, strictly to imaging. We defend that the combination of these biomarkers or radiological biomarkers with some genetic data, blood test data, and all that data with a big data analysis, we are sure that we could extract a lot of conclusions that could help clinical trials, but also could help the healthcare systems or healthcare.
Interesting. So as far as the biomarker, because this is like the way the next 10 years, the next decade of clinical research is going to be diagnostic. So you guys are going to experience a boom, it looks like. So I never realized you can actually look at biomarkers on images. Does the vendor have to put anything into the subject in order for you to see the biomarkers?
No. The vendor or the center that acquires the images has to acquire the images as their protocol, as their clinical protocol. Sometimes the clinical trial needs to tune the protocols, but our MRs or CTs normal, like all the days MRs and CTs. And we extract the biomarkers from those images.
This is interesting.
So if the site has to administrate something to the patient, it's because the MR image that they are going to acquire needs that drug or needs that substance, but not because Quibim needs it.
Interesting, because we have, we're doing an Alzheimer's study at one of my research clinics. And one of the procedures they have to do is MRI of the brain. And the point that gets all the patients nervous is they have to inject, I think it's some kind of fluoroscopy liquid. They have to inject some kind of liquid into their skull. And they say it's harmless, but nobody wants that, right? Because you don't know what the 20 years side effects are of that, right? Or 30 years. They never studied that. They just assume it's harmless. So, naturally, many of our patients who wanted to do this study did not do the study, right?
Yeah,
and I think it's because the sponsor is still relying on old-fashioned methods of looking for these results in the images, right? And so, you're telling me something like QuibimBlog would be able to eliminate that. Like, you wouldn't even need that.
For example, the MR sequence that we use for the virtual biopsy of the liver, it's one that in any hospital or in any clinical service do. So you do not need to administrate any substance or any drug to the patient. They are images that can be acquired with an MR that it's in any site or in any hospital or in any.
So explain the virtual biopsy.
Okay, that virtual biopsy is a biomarker that we've got in the liver that analyzing the different signals of the images we can quantify the amount of fat and the amount of iron that is placed in the liver. So it is based on the analysis of the signal of the image. Okay, so we do not need to administrate anything. We only need to analyze the signal that is due to the protons of the tissue that is placed in the tissue, because the tissue has protons. So we do not need a contrast. We only need to tune sometimes a bit the acquisition protocols of the images, but it's something that usually it's done every day because of the patient's characteristics or because of
Sure.
other
Sure.
things. We do not want to change the flow or the way that the sites or the vendors perform the analysis or perform the acquisitions.
Right. And they usually, the vendors don't want to give their interpretations for liability issues, right? So they require the PI to give the interpretation, right? Like they might describe the findings, but they don't give, at least here in the United States, everyone's afraid of liability. And so they don't want to give interpretations. I think you have to pay a lot more to get an interpretation. The good thing from QuibimBlog is you guys will provide that.
Okay, Quivim do not provide that,
Okay.
but in Quivim we've got also central readings of the images made by radiologists.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
the engineers do not do that, or our biomarkers in our reports, we never said, okay, you've got whatever. We never
Sure,
said,
sure.
never diagnosed, but we also have the service of central readings.
Central reading, yes, that's good.
Yeah.
Because the vendors we use, sometimes they don't have those services, right? And then it leaves it up to the PI to determine that, and the PI is not used to looking at so many
Yeah,
scans,
MRs or
right? Yeah, like a psychiatrist is more interested in prescribing medication than looking at scans. So they rely on those interpretations. So QBeam also has central readers, which is a fantastic service. So of the biomarkers, and this is great. I mean, the basically your core competency is taking the images, running it through and you have a specific set of algorithm preach study,
yeah.
like different things you're looking for, right? And the more images you analyze, the better a model you can create,
Yes. Yeah,
right?
sure.
How
Yeah,
does
sure.
that work?
Uh, how it, what? Sorry.
How does it work? Like when you get like the how does the machines, the algorithm actually get smarter based on the more images that it scans, right? Because it's just getting better. Like the systems, I mean, it's pretty much like using artificial intelligence in a way.
Hmm. It's depending on the algorithms. There are some of them that the more the images they analyze, the better they are. But there are another that are fully automated, and they are based more in images, not in features, no in artificial intelligence. It is based on image characteristics.
Mm.
So it's based on thresholding, or it's based on clustering of the different pixels intensities, but not all of them are based on artificial intelligence. So because of that, there are some of them that learns as much as images they receive, but there are others that are reproducible because they always do it the same way. So they are
Mm-hmm.
fully automated. They do not learn, if we can call it like that,
Yeah.
but they do it always the same way. So the results are consistent
Interesting.
among the different acquisitions.
Mm-hmm. And going forward in 2018 and beyond, what sponsors and CROs want is they want these results. Like eSource is a big trend in the industry, right? Like the sites collecting the data electronically and it automatically gets put into a EDC system. And with QuibimBlog, with these images, you can do the same thing, right? I would naturally assume you can have them passively get uploaded to some kind of EDC platform.
Yeah, well, of course we can do that, but also during the upload process, we've got a step that we call it data transmittal form, in which the center has to introduce all the information related to the image that is important. For example, in a PET CT scan, the injection time it's vital and it's very important. So we ask the user or we ask the vendors to type those data in order us to have it, and also if it's the case to fill it to a ECRF.
Interesting. And then I would imagine your job is to make sure that these vendors are actually following the protocol, right?
Yeah, sure. That's why we've got a quality check assurance
Mm-hmm.
step in which we assure that the images has the quality, not only the quality in terms of contrast or in terms of artifacts, also because they fulfill and they follow the protocol, the acquisition protocol,
Right, because
because it's
that's the most
important.
difficult part of a study is, you can have all these technology, but if humans don't
Yeah.
follow the protocol, it's useless, right? So that's
Yeah.
where you come
In
in and you
order
have to make sure that they're being compliant, right?
Yeah, in order to avoid that problems before starting a clinical trial, we have a part of or a step that we call it sites validation, in which we ask the centers to acquire a phantom with the acquisition protocol that we need for the clinical trial and upload it to the platform. This way we ensure that they acquire with the characteristic that we want, because we ask them to save the protocol with the acquisition protocol with the name of the clinical trial, in order that always acquire with the same
Mm-hmm.
characteristics. But also we ensure that the sites or the vendors knows how to upload the images to our platform. So before starting the clinical trial, we try to validate that vendors. So we ensure that the that the imaging acquisition capabilities are enough for the clinical trial,
Right.
but also that the internet connection, that the users that are going to use the platform knows how to use it. If they do not know, okay, it's perfect. Maybe we need a WebEx or we need a Skype or we need a visit to train that users in order to train them and everyone do it well.
Yeah, no,
So,
I totally understand. Do you work primarily, so in your role, I would
mhm.
imagine you work with the sponsor, with CRO, with the vendors, of course. Do you ever interact with the sites, also, research sites?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, if it's needed, if these imaging sites are the ones that are going to upload the images, we always we always are in contact with them, because we want to train them with
Mm-hmm.
our platform, with our protocol, or we want to ensure that everything it's going well, it's going okay, and
Mm-hmm.
according to the protocol of the clinical trial.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to do more interviews. This is number one on
Yeah.
QuibimBlog.com and on the YouTube channel, on Quibim's Facebook page, and on the podcast. It's gonna be audio as well. So thank you, Irene, very much. We're gonna have you on again to discuss more clinical research related issues. And
Okay.
what's been the feedback so far of QBim? How long have you guys been in business?
How long? Well, Quivim was founded in 2012,
Okay.
but it is working tough since 2014.
Okay.
So it's mainly 3 years, more or
Mm-hmm.
less,
Mm-hmm.
around 3 years, but it's founded since 2012.
Very good. Okay, well, we'll do future interviews. We're going to discuss more issues. There's always so many pertaining to clinical research, biomarkers, diagnostics. I mean, risk-based monitoring, big data. These are all trends that are just beginning. So,
Yeah.
you guys are in the right place. Make sure you subscribe and listen and leave your comments below. And thank you very much, Irene.
Thank you very much, Dan.
And we'll talk soon. Bye bye.